What is the fallacy? Well, the first fallacy with economic determinism is that Karl Marx, who studied philosophy and who should have known better, confused what is known as a condition and a cause. For example, a window is a condition of light. But a window is not the cause of light. We are willing to admit that economics, to some extent, does condition literature and art. But it certainly does not cause literature and art. The fallacy of Marx was to make condition equal determination, which was a logical fallacy. Not only is it logically wrong, it's historically wrong. If economics is the cause of culture, why is it that in the pre-Christian era, on the one hand, you had the great Hebrew civilization, and on the other hand, you had, for example, a civilization like the Babylonian, the Chaldean, and others. These civilizations were totally different in kind. They had different religions, different moral concepts, this being the highest moral concept that was known to man in the pre-Christian era. But their economic methods of production were identical. Therefore, economics does not cause the difference in cultures. Take, for example, the Christian era. Rome, during the first 3 or 4 centuries, the Roman Empire, had exactly the same economic method of production when it was pagan as when it was Christian. But the civilization and the art and the religion and the morality were totally different. Therefore, it is not the economics that determine civilization. The economics has gone to the head of the communists almost like wine to an empty stomach. But notice that whenever they appeal to our Western world, whenever they would try to convince us of the superiority of their own system and our weakness, what words do they use? They say, for example, that we are immoral in germ warfare when they spread that lie. They tell us that capitalism is unjust. They tell us that the way people are treated in the United States is unethical. We ask, by what right and what authority do communists ever use the words right and wrong? If everything is economically determined, ethics, right and wrong, truth and error do not belong in the economic categories. Communism is strong only when it borrows some of the moral indignation that has been inherited from the Hebraic Christian tradition. And communism is weak when it departs from that tradition. In other words, they have bootlegged all of the decency and morality that have come from the great Hebraic Christian tradition of the Western world. And they use it in order to condemn us, which is a reminder of how we ought to meet communism. In the Voice of America and elsewhere, not be talking about the supremacy of economics, because whenever we talk about the supremacy of economics, we are paying tribute to the communist era of the primacy of economics. They are speaking to the rest of the world in terms of ethics. We are speaking to the Western world, to the rest of the world, rather, in terms of economics. They are using the language that we ought to be using. We who pride ourselves on being moral and on being right. Then there is another aspect of communism, and that particular one is that man has value only inasmuch as he is a member of a class. In one of his earlier writings, Karl Marx, who was the founder of communism, said, "We have already destroyed the outer priest. Now we must destroy the inner priest. That is to say, man's clerical, spiritual nature." Then follows this very remarkable statement, in which Marx very correctly tells us the essence of democracy. And Marx knows the essence of democracy far better than many who enjoy it. Marx said, "Democracy is founded on the principle of the sovereign worth of every person. This, in its turn, is based upon a postulate, a dream, and an illusion of Christianity, namely that every man has an immortal soul." Then, coming to the first edition of his work on capital, Marx says, "Persons of and by themselves have no value. An individual has a value only inasmuch as he is a representative of an economic category and belongs to a certain revolutionary class. Outside of that, no value." And Molotov, more recently, carrying on that philosophy, developed the idea that bread is a political weapon. A political weapon. We thought that it was food for the hungry, regardless of who they are. Molotov said, "No, bread is only to be given to certain people, those who share your own political revolutionary ideas." This is the basic principle of communism. And so true is it. Remember, some years ago, Haywood Broun told me there was a cartoonist on one of the communist sheets in New York. And the cartoonist developed cancer. He was unable to work. And Haywood Broun went to the communists and asked them if they would not give him some pension or help pay his hospital bills. And the answer that he received from the communists was, "He's of no use to us. He no longer is a member of a revolutionary class, and therefore for us he does not exist." That was good communism, but it's not good humanitarianism. That explains liquidation. The individual has no value. What it actually is an application to the human order of what prevails in the lower realm of biology, where individuals perish in order that the species may survive. An individual fly, an individual gnat, an individual ant is of no consequence in the lower biological orders. What is of importance is the species. Marx and communism have taken that notion out of biology, lower biology, and applied it to man. And says that what happens to an individual man is of no consequence. What is of importance alone is the revolutionary class, namely the species, communism. That explains what we have seen and read about in Korea, namely the communist tanks running over the bodies of their wounded. No one would ever take them out of the path of any of their great machines, because they're of no worth. It also explains the way they attacked our UN forces. The first line of attack carried guns. The second line of attack would carry mattresses, throw themselves upon barbed wire, be shot. The second group would also come up unarmed, and the third group would have guns. We in democracy would never do that to men. Every man is precious. Every soldier is precious. And this liquidation, man in the modern world is not going to be met just simply by protest of horror. It means that we have to recognize the evil of this particular philosophy and begin affirming in the United States not just mass culture. We perhaps have had too much of that, namely an emphasis upon humanity, as Hitler put the emphasis upon race, as Mussolini put it upon nation, and as the communists are putting it upon a class. It is now high time to affirm in education, in politics and everywhere else, the sovereign worth of the individual. And that means that man has to get back to the true democratic concept, which Marx recognized, namely that every man is a soul. What we are attempting to do now in our Western world is to preserve the fruits of Christianity without its roots. That cannot be done. And what is unfortunate is that we of the Western world have the truth, but we have no zeal, we have no fire. What has happened to the great patriots, to our great champions of righteousness? The communists have stolen the Pentecostal fires. They have the zeal, but no truth. And we with the truth must also have heat and passion and fire. The kind of fire that the Savior came to cast upon the earth. The communists are right in saying this world needs a revolution, but not their cheap kind, which merely transfers booty and loot out of one man's pocket into another. We need the kind of a revolution in the United States and in the rest of the world that will purge out of a man's heart pride and covetousness and lust and anger and envy and gluttony and sloth. In other words, the true battle against communism begins within the heart of every single American. It means the recovery of our own great tradition, of our belief in God, of an affirmation in politics and in economic life, and among our politicians, of the things that are right and true before God. Then we need not fear communism, for if God is with us, then who can be against us?